Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Would you come on in here with me and let's sit down together and open our Bibles up. We're going to study today in Psalm 34, verses 1 and 2. I think I said last week this is one of my favorite Psalms. I probably say that too often, but Psalm 34 is seminal, really, in the book of the Psalter. It's so important. It's like Psalm 18 in a way. And one thing that makes it seminal is that we know when this took place. We know when David wrote this. He wrote it after the experience that's recorded for us in the introduction. So we have a historical setting here in the psalm, right there in the introduction. It says, a psalm of David when he changed his behavior before Abimelech, who drove him away and he departed. So you can find that in Psalms, in 1 Samuel chapter 21. And let me just turn there real quick. It's verse 13 is the verse I have marked here, but I know that that's where it really begins, is in verse 13. He changes his behavior before Abimelech. He had gone to Gath to, I guess, offer himself and to seek sanctuary for his people because Saul was relentless. He would not give up on chasing David. So he gets to Gath, and all the counselors of Gath say, well, isn't this David? Isn't he the one that killed all those Philistines? And of course, that's who they are. And so David hears this and he realizes that he's in trouble. And then in verse 13, it says he changed his behavior before them. So the psalmist gives us the same thing that we have in 1 Samuel. He changed his behavior and feigned himself mad in their hands and scrabbled on the doors of the gate and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. So that's 1 Samuel 21:13. It says, then, this is verse 14, then said Achish unto his servants, Lo, you see the man, he is mad. Wherefore then have ye brought him to me? Have I need of madmen, that ye have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? So he doesn't want David around. David definitely doesn't want to be there. He wants out because he realizes the mistake he's made. And then it says in verse 1 of chapter 22, David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So you see, what we have in the historical record in the psalm matches exactly with what we have in 1 Samuel 21, verses 13 through 22:1. And all his father's house and all the people came down to him. Verse 2 of chapter 22 says, everyone that was in distress, everyone that was in debt, everyone that was discontented gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. So you see, suddenly now David has his own little cohort here of men who are gathered around him, including his family. Apparently they're with him in the cave Adullam. And now they're hiding from Saul, and they've escaped from Achish. Now, what we have here in verses 1 and 2, so we have his praise that the Lord has blessed his escape, basically. So why don't we read 1 and 2? I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. So you see, David is blessing the Lord at all times because God has done this great work for him, and simply because he's the Lord. And one of the things that's interesting in this psalm, and we're going to do this psalm in two parts, but one of the things that's interesting in the psalm is how often the Lord's name appears. We have it 16 times in 22 verses. So when you see the Lord's name, all caps, that's the tetragrammaton. It's not to be spoken. We're just going to pronounce this Lord, and it occurs 16 times in these verses. So this is very specific. David wants us to enter into praise for the Lord with him. And so he writes this psalm as a psalm of thanksgiving and praise for the Lord who's delivered him out of the hands of Achish. Now, Achish is the name of the king. His throne name is Abimelech. You have that here in the introduction. He changed his behavior before Abimelech. And if you look at 1 Samuel 21, it says he changed his behavior before Achish. And Achish is the one who comes and speaks. Well, Achish is the king's name, but his throne name is Abimelech. And you can go all the way back to Genesis chapter 20 in Abraham's story and find that the kings of the Philistines were known as Abimelech. And Abimelech just means my father is king. So that's interesting there, I think, a throne name that we have recorded for us and preserved by the psalmist. We have the Lord's name 16 times. And also, I forgot to mention, this is another acrostic psalm. So we have an alphabetic psalm here. Each line, each verse begins with one of the letters of the alphabet. So you have 22 verses. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. However, one of the letters of the alphabet is left out and one is repeated, which gives us the 22 verses. Okay, well, join me tomorrow. We're going to look at verses 3 and 4 here on Daily Dose Radio.